Okay, everybody, well, welcome to the this meeting of the Council Long-Term Plan 2024-2034 hearing. First of 3 days, we've got a very busy program ahead of us, and we would start with the karakia.
Hello, Frank.
Thank you. Do we have any conflicts of interest? Yes, Councillor Johnson.
One conflict of interest, which is as a director of the Board of Trust House, and I also just wanted to note that I'm a member of the Masterton Residents and Ratepayers Association, and also I represent the 3 councils on the board of Pacifica Owairaka who are also represented.
Thank you. That the conflict of interest with the trust house. Thank you. Councillor Livings.
Thank you. I just want to declare that I am employed by Transit, and Jenna Snellgrove is coming in today to talk about transit and the tourism industry. She's the General Manager. Family friends? Family members? Is that included?
Yes.
So Bob Francis, Neil Francis. Also I have, just looking through the list, sorry. That's it for today.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Councillor next. Anybody else? Joe?
I have conflict there. Wairarapa Water Group that's coming in, I'm part of that group. I may have some conflicts with some of the, if there's some iwi coming in, like particular papa, could have some conflicts around that as well.
Okay, thank you, Joe. Any further conflicts? No further conflicts of interest? Any apologies? No apologies. No, nobody in the public forum, no late items. So we go straight on to reports for decision for long-term plan hearings, 2024-34 hearings. And Karen, you want to say? Right, sorry. Who's doing the?
Sorry, I just need to bring that up. Harriet, did you want to talk to that for a second?
I'll just read the agenda.
So, the covering report for the hearings is on the agenda. We've received 89 submitters who have asked to be heard, and we'll be hearing from those people over the next 3 days. I think everything else is self-explanatory. Oh, the other thing is that we're receiving the submissions on the rates remission and the postponement on Māori freehold land policy. We'll deal with the recommendations at the end of the hearings. Any questions?
Any questions for Harriet? Thank you, Harriet. Just a couple of things before we get into the actual meeting. We're here today, tomorrow and Friday to hear submitters on the long-term plan who wanted to present their submissions orally. We need to remind you and also submitters that the meeting is being live streamed on the Masterton District Council YouTube channel. First, Council will hear from each of the submitters, and once all submitters have finished presenting, we will go to the recommendations in the report and deal with those, and then the hearings will close. Council will meet again on 5th of June to deliberate on all the submissions received, those we heard and those we didn't hear, those who didn't want to be heard, and then we'll adopt the final long-term plan at the meeting on the 26th of June. I will note here for people who are watching online that through this hearings process there will be times when individual councillors are absent because of other commitments. These councillors have been asked, I was tempted to put ordered, but these councillors have been asked to view the submissions for which they are unable to be present, so that all submitters can feel they've been given a fair and proper hearing by all councillors. The procedure today is we will adjourn today at about 10:45 for morning tea. Around 12:10 we have the Audit and Risk Committee. We will adjourn at 12:10 for the Audit and Risk Committee meeting at 1 o'clock. We'll reconvene at 6 o'clock to hear from more submitters, and we will adjourn tonight around 7:25 to reconvene tomorrow morning at 9 a.m. Just reminding elected members, when considering all submissions, we need to approach the hearings and deliberations with an open mind and take into account all written and oral submissions, and that you're here to listen and not engage in debate with submitters or offer solutions, but only to ask questions to clarify. It's important that we don't get into making statements about whether we think what is being said to us is true or not. We just have to basically only ask questions. So, let's get underway. The Friends of Solway Reserve, Joan Desmond.
I'm saying they're downstairs, I've just asked Claire to send them up, they're downstairs.
Okay, Joan's on the way. Joan's submission is on page 7, volume 6. Hi Joan, you're speaking on behalf of the Friends of Solway Reserve, and great to see for our first submission on what's going to be a hell of a long 3 days that we've got just about half the town here to listen to you. I think that's excellent. Joan, you have 7 minutes to speak to us, and we have 3 minutes for questions. You are being live streamed, and it's over to you. We have, all the councillors will have read your submission, so you can just take the points that you want to bring to us now. Welcome.
So thank you for the opportunity to do this, and yeah, here we all are, some of us anyway. So we're all very keen on this whole point and getting a new boardwalk in the Solway Reserve. Hands up those who've been to the reserve. You'll look forward to going together. Okay, so
Yeah.
that one? Yeah, this is a fairly poor kind of map, but this is from the,
Joan, we're just going to get the microphone here. We do have a problem with
I need,
it. Just make sure everybody can hear what you're saying.
oh, sorry, yeah. Yeah, okay, so a lot of this is from this is the draft strategy of the Parks and Open Spaces plan, and this is our inspiration. And so, yeah, I'm sure you're working through it really admirably, you know. Okay, so, what do I need? That one. So here we are here, tiny little spot down the south end of the city, the town, and all the green parts are the open spaces and the parks. And this bigger one of the little ones is what we're talking about today. This is all a council-owned area, and the reserve, Solway Reserve, is the only publicly accessible potocarp, wetland, native forest area in Masterton that we as the public can have access to. There's no other place in Masterton accessible to the public that's part of the original remnant of farmland. So it's really special and unique, you know, that we look after it. Here's a comparison map. I'll just let you look at it. This is William Donald Drive, just to give you a bit of context. And this is about maybe 2005. That one's probably last year. So you can see the population growth. I worked it out. There's about maybe 400 dwellings, new dwellings, maybe in the last 20, 30 years. Like we've got Holsworth Villas, we've got William Donald Drive, Mervyn Brown one. We've got the barracks over there, and now we've got Solway Country Estate going on. So that's probably about 400 dwellings, not just people. And our little reserve, surrounded by it, and really not much. There's only one entrance to that reserve. There it is, a bit bigger. That's pink is the boundary. So this is what we do. I'll just whip through these and you can read fast. We started meeting about last November and worked really closely with the operations of the council, Greater Wellington, Predator-Free, Masterton. We've met up with so many people, that's amazing, just in this short time. Probably done about 500 hours. We meet every single Thursday. And this is what we do. Odell has been magnificent support. There we go. And then we have morning tea. Got to have morning tea. So what I've got there, this is me when I was writing this, getting quite emotional about it. So I'll just read it quickly so you can close your eyes and not try and read it at the same time. So why are we doing all this, and why are we so concerned about the long years of neglect of this forgotten treasure? Why are we so willing to learn? Why do we come so enthusiastically every Thursday morning to pull out weeds, glugging our way through mud to get to the next garden escapee, arum lily and stinking iris, or prickly hawthorn and strangling supplejack, getting torn by endless bracts of smothering blackberry? So that's quite dramatic, isn't it? Why do we love sharing stories about piwaka waka, tui, kiraroo and snails and the number of rats, possums, mice and hedgehogs we've disposed of? Why do we stand and gaze at a tree we've probably seen hundreds of times now? Why have we now become horrified at the number of feral cats which are trapped, neutered and returned to predate again? And why is this tiny patch of God's creation so important to us? Well, this is part of the reason. This is the boardwalk. And thanks to Richard and an app, we got it sort of accurate. So the boardwalk is 173 metres long. It was put in by PD workers several years, about 30 years ago. This is it here. Somebody called Vic Rees was an early supervisor. Money came through the Justice Department. So this is, when you're in the middle of the reserve, this is what you see. It's unbelievable, and nobody really knows that it's there. So got on Vic for getting it going. Some rare species that are there. And you can see that when you're driving into Masterton, it's gorgeous. I've got addicted and obsessed over the trees now. Swamp Mairi. So, we're learning all the time about trees, and this is the other thing. This is why we do it. They're starting to come back. They really are. We're getting rid of possums. Howard Evans next door, he got 33 in 2 months, 33 possums. So we're soon going to lose this lower path here because of Westwood's development. their boundary is in here somewhere. The boardwalk is closed, so all we're going to be left with is at the back there. This is the bit that's westwards, you know, Solway Country Estate. I'm nearly there. Boardwalk's closed, except we did take Gary and Bex through it. But this is what it will end up looking like. And this is what it is like now. This is why it's closed, and it should be closed. It's really terrible. It's been really, really neglected. And if you're restricted to along the back, this is what you get. You get all this blackberry that Greater Wellington has taken away. I call it the Blackberry Highway. It's absolutely unbelievable how much that was there. And rank grass, which we're going to plant, but that will be ages. So that's all you see when you're walking around the back. So read that. And there we go. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joan, for that presentation. Now we have questions from councillors. Any questions? Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, hi Joan. Just for those who haven't been there, you mentioned one entrance, if you could just explain where that is. But my second question is, so what are you asking of council today?
Yeah, well, we're asking for replacement. We haven't costed anything out. We've had suggestions like put in the submission of plastic wood, which is a very long shelf life, and it doesn't affect the environment that it's grown in. So we're asking for 173 metres of boardwalk, or something towards it. I mean, we're happy to go to businesses and get people, like the Kids Zone Park. People give money and they get a recognition of what they've given. So that's probably what will happen, I would imagine. But guys, what I think is that all the money that you saved, not you specifically, by not paying anybody to do the work in this place, you've saved it all up and you can put it into the boardwalk.
Any further questions? No further questions. Thank you very much, Joan, for your presentation. We deliberate on these early next month and make final decisions at the end of next month. So we'll let you know. Thank you so much, and thank you to the rest of the reserve group for coming along. Right. Okay, Bob Francis. Welcome, Bob. I won't read the drill out to you. You've been here before. Know the rules. So over to you, Bob.
Thanks, Gary, and a very good morning, and thanks for the opportunity. I've provided some additional notes which I've given to Harriet, so they'll be available if you want to have a look at those post this presentation. So I just confirm in my written submission the support for the redevelopment of the Town Hall, Waiata House, which is a council preferred option, the library and archives, as outlined in the long-term plan. We also support the retention of the Town Hall facade facing Chapel Street and the Town Square. I wish to spend most of my allocated time focusing on some thoughts and direction for the external fundraising for the Town Hall, but also I note that it also has some application for the library and the archives. I've shared some initial thinking with the Mayor and Deputy Mayor re the establishment of a committee group to take responsibility for a significant external fundraising campaign. There are potentially 7 different areas to focus on. Number 1, central government funding support. 2, national funding trusts. And I'm talking about organisations like Lions Foundation, some of those big national trusts. Regional funders, including trusts, and there's a big group of those. Local business donors. Naming rights for some components. Local regional fundraisers, could be several. Aim would be to involve the total community. And the 7th one is sourcing local manufactured construction products. So if you put that together, there's a very significant opportunity with a really focused campaign to raise significant funds to support these great projects. Once the project is given the green light, targets would be established and the identified group would get underway. I think it's quite important that if we do proceed in line with this, that we do set some targets. They would be realistic, but they'll be quite big goals as to what could be raised in a time frame of, say, 18 months to 2 years. So it could proceed as the construction's underway. It would still proceed through that process. I've had a 12, 15 months involvement with Wellington Free Ambulance new build as an ambassador for the new build. And even in this quite tough economic times, I've been really pleased, and it's been really great, the response we've had from national organisations, regional organisations and local organisations. And that was a very lofty target we set, and there'll be an announcement in the next week or two as to how that's been achieved. Pretty significant, and it's been outstanding actually. I've talked with a small number of potential support people who are keen to be involved. Really a task for the council to put together, but there is, I believe, a group of motivated people out there that will get behind this and really get involved. The council CE would provide admin support, including preparing funding applications where required, and the Mayor and CE and council will be involved in funding some of the big application and bids. But the group, of course, would do a lot of the lead work on that, but there would be times, Gary, when you and Rex and Kim and others would have to fund some of these bids. All of the other provides a great opportunity for the local community to be involved and to share in the ownership. And I think that's a really big issue of this great new community facility. So getting through that whole process of that 12, 18 months, we're putting a lot of momentum. We're gaining support from all the total community, children, adults and everyone in between, and working towards this goal. Just a small example, my grandchildren are aware of my family's name on the pickets of the kids' own playground at Cruiser Park, and I think that's great. And though this is a totally different project, I think this could be an amazing project that, with some innovative thinking, could be duplicated as happened in that build actually 25 years ago. I'm certain we can create a similar environment for our total community with this new build. One of the real pluses I've noted will be the community taking ownership and using the facilities to the maximum. I was going to do some work for this, but I'm going to do it over the next week or two, is looking at who's going to use this facility. I spent 20 odd years sitting upstairs there observing what was going on in the Cody Lounge and the Town Hall, and my experience through that period was it had great use. There's got to be some good promotion around it. There's got to be multi-use, and I'm certain that situation will occur against post this build. I confirm my total support and commitment for the project, and a commitment for the external fundraising initiatives. And it's in your hands, Gary, as how that's used, but that office here today. I just want to finish with some comments on what we're missing out on over the past 8 years. 2016 was closed, the town hall was closed. And just talk about what we've missed out over the past 8 years from touring shows and our previous strong link to Wellington, which used to bring shows over. Over the past few years, I've tracked almost weekly through my online link to Ticketing, having purchased tickets to shows that they're promoting. And weekly, on a weekly basis, I read the Sunday Star Times. And almost every week, there's a page on some show that's been promoted through the country. And most of these are overseas shows. Excellent shows that go to venues like Havelock North, Oamaru, and similar sized towns to Masterton. Just looking at Oamaru, which is a town half the population by Masterton. They have some amazing shows go there. And for some of you know, good rock bands, the Proclaimers from Scotland played there just recently. I've also watched with interest the excellent population growth we're achieving. And I thought that, Joan, your presentation earlier, showing what's happening at Solway with that development, you talked about 400 new homes approximately. Over the last 5 years, we've experienced 10% growth in our population, 2% a year, and we're experiencing a rate take increase of about 1.5%, which equates to about 500,000–600,000 a year. So we're seeing really good growth. And if you see what's happening in Wellington with the major changes in the state service, there's no question if we continue to promote ourselves, we'll continue to grow, and the town will be a very important facility as we move into that next phase. So I just want to confirm my strong support as outlined in my submission and commitment to support Gary, that external fundraising project.
Thank you very much, Bob. Any questions for Bob? Yes, Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Thanks, Bob. Just 3 quick questions, if I may. What sort of percentage of total costs would you be hoping realistically to raise through external fundraising?
Oh, I'd be in the millions.
Yep.
As I said, I've noted, Tim, 7 areas where we'd focus on. There's 1 or 2 that we'd have to do some initial work to just go to those potential funders and say, look, what's the situation at the moment? And I'm pretty confident that one of those would be central government. And as you know, they've set aside the 1.4 billion for economic development in this term. Can we access some of that funding? We'd have to do some more work on that. But there's still other funding in government that we can also access, and I've done a bit of work on that. So it would be significant.
Just another one. So if the council was to approve the preferred option,
Yeah.
do you feel that the level of commitment to external fundraising would be at the same level if the money was essentially already guaranteed by council? Do you see my point? Like,
No, just repeat that.
so if the council approves option 1, or
Yeah.
the approved option,
Yeah.
do you think, and that money is essentially in the bank, do you think that level of commitment to external fundraising would remain?
I think I don't know, there'd be something we'd have to work through, but I would take a certain amount out of that capital amount and put an external fund in there.
Yep. And just the last one.
Does that answer it?
Yeah. And do you have an example of something like this working successfully in New Zealand in recent times, of an external funder contributing significantly to a project like this?
Well, I go back to, I suppose, I was involved with the new build of the rec centre. You know, we raised 3.6 million externally. That's a long time ago, but the Wellington Free external funding in excess of 4 million, and that was done in 12 months, 15 months. I'm confident that even though we are in quite tight economic times, the funding's out there, and I think it's a matter of being a very targeted, strong campaign, and I'm offering myself to be part of that to make sure it happens.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Councillor Johnson?
Yeah, hi Bob, thanks. I believe there might be an example of a similar type building in the South Island, which was it Oamaru? Which was successful in raising significant central government funding for a town hall.
No, the one I was referring to was Timaru, which has been
Timaru.
bogged down a bit at the moment. But they received 11.5 million from memory, and they're still working through that process. That came through the PGF.
Great.
Any further questions for Bob? No further questions. Thank you very much, Bob. Appreciate it. Okay, Neil Francis. Hi, Neil. I think you've been here before too. Neil, you get 7 minutes to speak. We have 3 minutes of questions. You're being live streamed. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you, councillors and council support staff. I'd like to comment on two of the big decisions in the long-term plan, the town hall rebuild and the library and archive options. For the last 31 years of my working life, I was employed by Masterton District Council from 1985 at the library and from 2005 at Wairarapa Archive. And during that time I saw the library go from a card catalogue to a computer-based catalogue, and from large reference books collection, which I managed, to the World Wide Web. So I feel I've sort of seen quite a lot of progress in that period. Almost my entire life has been dominated by books and reading. One of my measures of quality of a city or town is its public library. And throughout my youth, the Masterton Borough Council debated and tussled with how to provide an adequate library. The current library building opened in 1982 after several decades of dithering. I don't want to see any more time debating the obvious regarding the library and Wairarapa Archive. The current building, which is now 40 plus years old, needs serious expansion, and to do this without incorporating a proper functioning archive would be a huge lost opportunity. From 2000, when Wairarapa Archive launched a proper web-based catalogue, I saw the archive blossom and achieve an envied place amongst community archives in New Zealand. And that happened because the staff, led by Gareth Winter, acted as gate owners, not gatekeepers. People everywhere on the globe could see what Wairarapa Archive held. Although financial support from other Wairarapa districts was either minimal or non-existent, we always acted as though we were the community archive for the Wairarapa district. Although the archive is the official holder of MDC archives, the majority of archive inquiries were about the holdings of local families, local clubs and societies, many of whom were defunct, local schools, local businesses. And the digitisation of photos, which was initiated in my time there, was a huge success and continues. When I retired in 2016, the archive had 25,000 photos online. The current archive premises are inadequate. It's out of the public view. The public or research space is not conducive to researchers or even now I understand the computer resources there that were formerly available at the Queen Street Archive are still not there and up and going. MDC is paying rent for a temporary and second-rate solution. We need a proper permanent archive facility. The plan to incorporate an archive into an expanded and modernised library is logical and will bring the resources of library and archive together. If MDC does not bring the two together now in a planned and active exercise, I think Masterton and the Wairarapa community will be the loser in years to come. So in conclusion, I support the alternative option 1 to upgrade and expand the library and include the archive. Moving on to the town hall issue, I support the preferred MDC option. The retention of the civic building facade is not a deal breaker with me, but if it can be retained without compromising the important job of providing a community multi-purpose auditorium, I say go with it. Locals will recall, or the older locals anyway, will recall the noisy agony that went before the building of the Carterton Events Centre and the major refurbishment of Masterton's War Memorial Stadium and pools. Once those facilities were actually open, opposition disappeared. Some folk have pointed out to existing large halls in Masterton, namely Wairarapa College Hall and Rathgills Hall. These are on educational grounds and the schools involved will always want first call. So I really don't see that these are any substitute for a community-owned auditorium. The current economic climate, which Bob referred to, which is tough, seems to be a perfect time to crack on with these two projects. I understand local trades are experiencing a building downturn. I think it is the right time to move quickly to achieve both a new library archive and a new Masterton Town Hall and extension of Wyatt House.
Thank you so much, Neil. Any questions for Neil? No questions for Neil. Thank you so much, Neil.
I'm pleased I've been so absolutely clear. Thank you.
Thank you. We deliberate at the end of the month, Neil, so we'll, in the end of next month. Okay, Sid Hayes. Sid, you've been here before as well, so I don't need to read too much. You know what's going on, eh? 7 minutes, 3 minutes for questions. Over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship and fellow councillors. Right, I'm going to actually start with the library as such. You will have noted, if you have read my submission, I'm really struggling with the need to extend the library. I, in my submission, excluded the archive from this particular discussion. If the library basement, for instance, which is 220 square metres, was made fit for purpose, I don't think there is any necessity for an extension of the library. That's the size of a pretty large house sitting underneath the floor there. Now, I've been observing of late the usage, etc., of the external porticoms, and to be quite honest, they're not being used much at all. So my reasoning here is, why not spend the minimum required to bring it up to standard? I also have thrown in the suggestion of a lift in there, because there seems to be another argument against utilising either the basement and the mezzanine floor. So I feel within these tough times, which everyone's having a mention of at the moment, and I hate to be too pessimistic, but in fact I think they're actually going to get worse for some years. And I also feel that in the general statement regarding the population growth that was outlined in the 10-year plan, I feel it is overstated for what we're going to go into for the next 10 years. I'll move on to the town hall. I've been hammering this from the day it was closed, and with various suggestions. I'm not going to go back into that area of my first suggestion, because if anyone recalls, I was pushing for the local council to contribute some funds to extending the Masterton Event Centre and improving that as an area venue as such. Why do we have to keep duplicating all of these facilities? Nobody has mentioned, other than Bob just now, and all of the people that I've had discussions with, what is the hall going to be used for? Now, Bob, I know, sat in the council chambers for all of those years. To be quite honest, prior to the closure, I'd like to see some figures. Could somebody show me some figures of what the town hall itself was used for? I'm not referring to the council chambers or the civil defence, because you'll note I touched on those 2 points as well. I just don't feel that in this economic climate, I know in theory it'll be the cheapest time to build, but you'll be saddling the ratepayers with a tremendous amount of borrowing, regardless of all of the good intentions and how much external funding may be provided. And when you look at the overall situation, I look at basically, you're not looking at borrowing. For instance, I worked on the preferred option of 42.6 million. You're borrowing that and combining that with another 10.75 for the library extension. But you add the costs of those, the funding, the interest that's going to be paid on that borrowing, and the ongoing operational costs between the two, the library and the town hall, you're talking 4 million a year on top of that for the operational and interest costs. So you're not talking about borrowing 42.6 million, you're asking the ratepayers to find 122 million over a 25-year period. So I go back as well to these two Hallworth reports that were done, and to be quite honest, I detailed out, went to the cost of detailing out in my second advertorial with regards to the lemon and the liability. I'm not going to read it out to you. You should have all read it anyhow, and what I'm saying is the items that I listed in there, they are relevant to any type of construction, any size that you decide to build, and so forth. So those situations don't change. We are really, I hate to say it or sound pessimistic, but we're in a backwater, and will always face this problem of being geographically disadvantaged for many things. But this is one I think that you really need to take into account. As I said, it was my words, they're their observations, but also I feel that they're warnings. And I don't think those warnings are being taken seriously. I've commented on as I say, I started with the town hall, and I'll go back there, and I just can't get my head around there being that huge expanse in the basement. I was hoping that I might have been able to be a bit more helpful and elaborate here, but I made a request to have a look down there, and that was denied due to health and safety situation. But it just staggers me. 220 square metres, that's almost 2,000 square feet. If you imagine a house, put your house down in that basement, and then if that could not accommodate these other activities that are being suggested, and the information, some of the information I was given just does not stack up. The portacoms that are there now are not being utilised anywhere near 50% of the time that they're there. And I don't want to exclude people from the library, and you're talking about a hub and all of these activities, but you know, it's a library after all. And for instance, should it house all of the knitting groups, I agree with the likes of the digital seniors and the book clubs and all of these related things, but you know, after all, I think it's a library, and if it were brought up to spec, I can't see any justification to actually add to it.
Okay, so sorry, yes, time. Can you take questions now?
Sure.
Thank you. Any questions for Sid? Yeah, Councillor Nelson.
There's a big difference between 50 million and 122 million dollars. How confident are you in those figures regarding that include operational costs and interest costs?
Well, I can only go by the information that was actually put out there for us to look at in the 10-year long-term plan. And those are the figures that were quoted. For instance, at the town hall, the operational cost and so forth was going to be 3.2 million, and the operational cost and financing cost for the extension to the library is going to be 0.8 million. So there's 4 million. And then as well, I was told that the borrowing situation was going to be over a 25-year term. So I asked, would those costs continue? And I didn't really get an answer, a particularly great answer, so I can only assume they are. So I then multiplied that cost by 25.
Thank you, sir. Thanks for your presentation.
Councillor Johnson.
Hi Sid. You haven't made any mention of the civil defence building. I just wonder what your feedback is on that.
I did, well,
I know you have a new submission.
no,
Yeah, but I'd just like to hear from you on that,
oh, sure, okay.
briefly.
The reasoning, or part of the reasoning for the option, preferred option of rebuilding the town hall and adding to Waiata House, I just can't see the sense in adding to Waiata House unless it was required, which I touched on in my submission. The council staff are currently housed in Waiata House and Queen Street. The Queen Street premises, I know you're paying rent, and I've heard the figures I've been quoted is about 170,000. But those figures, in comparison to what you're looking at, and if you agree on borrowing to fund the town hall and the library extension, virtually are just pocket money in comparison. Plus the facility there obviously is housing some of the council staff and is very ideally located for the public as far as dealing with the council is concerned. But the civil defence situation quite surprises me in as much as, okay, I've got to be 100% honest here, the likes of the Wellington Free Ambulance, I can't tell you whose the building is. There's been public fundraising, etc., to build the facility and so forth. But what I'm getting at is the council over the years leading up to the building commencing and so forth would have been aware of what the building was going to contain and so forth. And I would have thought it would have made common sense to look at that building, which is apparently is an LL4 rating with regards to its construction. So in theory, going to be one of the most solid and safest facilities in the town. I actually approached somebody at the Wellington Free Ambulance to talk to them to see if they were prepared to discuss the situation. I had quite an amicable and informative discussion. And one part of that discussion was, yes, that they felt that they could accommodate the civil defence in a civil defence emergency. However, that's not what the building was being built for, and that they may, in a civil defence emergency, be asked to take over if their Wellington branch was out or something like that. But what I'm saying as well, and I threw in another one there with the Greater Wellington Regional Council, I don't know, have they got suitable facilities or sized room that they could operate in? you know, because these buildings should be up to standard, and also both of those organisations would be involved in a civil emergency if we had one.
Thank you, Sid. Well, thank you. Your 10 minutes is up. Thank you so much, Sid. Much appreciated. And we deliberate at the end of next month. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, John Prendergast. G'day, John. How are you? We've got 7 minutes just for you to speak, 3 minutes for us to ask a question. You're being live streamed. Over to you.
Kia ora tātou, good morning, Mayor Gary and councillors. Thank you for the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I am John Prendergast, I'm CEO of Trust House Limited, and Trust House supports the council's preferred option in respect of the town hall option. That is to demolish the town hall and build a new one, to retain the facade and expand Waiata House. And the reason we are supportive of that is because the reasons articulated in the consultation document really, that preserves the historic facade, consolidates all council staff onto one site, so you avoid the Queen Street lease, $170,000 that Sid just mentioned. It does provide an appropriate civil defence building. Importantly, it gives Masterton back the town hall, and it can provide a venue capable of hosting bigger events than Masterton can currently cope with. So that will provide opportunities for the community to enjoy events that at the moment simply can't even contemplate Masterton as a destination for them. And new major events coming to Masterton will be good for the community, it'll be good for our businesses too. It'll be good for, we've got a nice hotel at Cockthorne Hotel, Solway Park that people can stay at. So big events coming here is good for us, also good for our other hospitality businesses. So far, so good. We do have a caveat though on our support for it. And that is 2 caveats really. Firstly, the demand analysis that I've seen by Woolworth HTL back in 2020, and I don't know if there's been any subsequent work done on it, but that didn't present a compelling case for the establishment of the facility from an events and conference perspective. So there's all those other benefits, but from an events and conferencing perspective, based on the Howarth report, I wouldn't do it. In fact, it concluded that the business case for building the facility wouldn't be viable, and that's even if it managed to cannibalise events business away from existing venues. And the major event venue in Masterton at the moment happens to be our Cockthorne Hotel at Solway Park. So we do have a significant concern that a new venue would compete with our and other existing venues. And we don't mind competition, provided it's fair and commercial competition. But if council ends up competing with Trust House and other venue operators by using ratepayer funding to subsidise the cost of the new venue to users, then that's not fair competition. Trust House, if we're not the biggest ratepayer in Masterton, we're very close to being the biggest ratepayer in Masterton. So we'd obviously be concerned if ratepayer funds, of which we're the biggest contributor, were then used to subsidise a new events facility to compete against the biggest ratepayer in Masterton. So whilst we're supportive for the reasons I outlined earlier, we think it would be great for Masterton and a very positive signal for Masterton. Internally, it would make us feel better as citizens of Masterton and a great new facility like that. Externally, it's a great signal that we're here and hope for business for now in the future. But we would want to work with council to identify how the events and conferencing aspect of the new facility can be fairly and commercially and not to the detriment of existing venues. I also mentioned in our submission that we're not submitting on the funding rearrangements that council's contemplating because Trust House Foundation is also a funder of a lot of those organisations, so we have confidence that we don't have any.
That's it. Thank you very much, John. Any questions for John? Councillor Goodman.
Just So your board supports this submission?
The board is aware that I made the submission, yes.
Oh, okay, so they haven't read it and voted on it?
Yeah, voted on it, no, but they're aware of it.
Oh, thank you. Were you aware the operating costs, the annual operating costs of the town hall, just from your comments, I'm a wee bit confused that you support it, but the operating costs are shown as being around about 2.3 million a year, the operating loss. That's after income of, in the first year, $650 a week, as against an operating loss of $45,000 a week. But in the second year, they predict it will pick up and be $1,080 a week income, but that's still a massive.
You got a question, Councillor Goodall?
The question is, were you aware of those figures, of the massive subsidy that this proposal that's been put to the public is predicated on?
Every town hall in the country and every event centre in the country operates at a deficit. And I've been significantly involved in some in Southland, in the new stadium and event centre in Southland is the same. And that's a question that councillors need to resolve. Our concern is the events and conference in Parliament to ensure that the pricing around that isn't subsidised by council to create an unfair environment for other venues.
Thank you, Councillor Goodall.
No, John's clarified that.
Okay. Any further question, Councillor Nelson?
Thank you. Thanks for your presentation, John. With your event side at, say, the COP1, how many people would you employ in that industry?
There are between 90 and 100 staff employed at the COP Forum across the whole business. It's hard to segment that into how many of them are specific events. We have probably 3 staff who are dedicated specifically to events and conferencing, but then obviously conferences bring people who need accommodating. So our cleaners, all of our hotel staff engaged in that, feeding by it. Similarly, they need to eat, so our restaurant and bar staff are located as well.
Thank you. And so the unfair competition you're talking about to put that industry or that side of your business at risk?
Could do, yeah.
Thanks, John.
Councillor Trotter.
Hey John, as a major accommodation provider at Masterton, do you see there's an opportunity if proposed venue went ahead to the size that's in the LTP for a partnership arrangement through accommodation and event packages?
Absolutely. And that's why I said that a new event centre that brought major events to Masterton would be good for us as an accommodation provider, that it would increase our business. And so that's why we support the proposal, but just with the caveat around the
Oh, sorry, okay. Yeah.
Any, Councillor Helena?
Thank you for your submission, John. As you'll be aware, councils across the nation are facing significant rate increases. I'm just wondering, and you know, if we go ahead with some of these big ticket items which have been discussed today, they're going to have a significant impact on Masterton District Council rates. Are you able to guarantee your tenants that those rate increases won't impact on tenants' rents?
No. I mean, obviously, rents that we charge tenants, and our tenants are predominantly social housing tenants, so we have 473 tenants. 300 of those receive government income-related rent subsidy support, so their rents are capped at no more than 25% of rent. The other 173 tenants aren't government supported. They are currently paying 65% of lower control market rent, so the community is subsidising it significantly. We need to, if we incur cost increases, that needs to be reflected in how we deal with the rent for our tenants. So no, I don't think any landlord could say that they're immune to cost increases and the way people tenants.
Any further questions? Okay, no further questions. Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it. We now break.
Sorry, just in regards to us asking questions, are they not meant to be directed at the submission, not other subjects? I'm just querying. Are we allowed to ask questions outside of what's been submitted?
I think, personally, I think the questions have been okay so far.
I'm just getting yeah.
There is a little hint of statements in some of the questions, but at the moment,
Thank you.
Okay, we have a break now, 9:55 and 10 o'clock. We have Simon, you're here. Lisa and Anne aren't here, are they? So Simon, do you want to do yours now? So this is the 10:35 one.
What number is that?
That is number 10, volume 1, page 53. So Simon Byrne, 7 minutes to speak, 3 minutes for questions, you know the rules. And you're being live streamed.
I haven't spoken at one of these before, but I'll keep the rules, more or less. Right, in my written submission, I ticked every lower cost option there was, and my underlying reasoning was that the rates requirement over the next 5 years is going from 42 million to 62 million. I think for most people, or many people, that will be unaffordable. So why not go for all the lower cost options? My feeling is the new town hall will be an expensive white elephant, and the library extension is a very expensive, nice to have. In the light of those rates requirements increases, which are due to roading and sewage and that sort of thing, I don't think either of those two projects will be approved. I also, in my written submission, I expressed a feeling that the municipal building and retaining it separately to a town hall should have been explored as it is. The only way you could retain that whole building is to also have a town hall. I think that's unfortunate. I can see now there's not a lot of point in talking about it if it's not going to happen. It's not one of the options in the consultation document. I also said that if the buildings are demolished, please consider just selling the buildings so that the ratepayer doesn't have to pay the cost of the demolition. You've got one, it's a house, it's a good site, it's got parking. Why do you need to keep the old site? Of smaller importance, when I saw the consultation document, I submitted an information request regarding how the $230 a year extra rates for the town hall was calculated. I've got a detailed explanation from council on that. But reading that information, I came to the conclusion, rightly or wrongly, that the cost has been underestimated. The annual cost of the town hall. It's been put at about 3.2 million a year. This is the basic option. And I think it's closer to 4 million a year. And the reason I think that is that if you look at the Masterton Event Centre, they employ 7 full-time staff to run the event centre, plus a team of part-time staff. In the figures I was given by the council, there is a 78k allowance for staffing the event centre. That's an additional to what the staff there are now. That's not even one FTE. You compare that with Carlton, they got 7 plus a team of part-timers. We heard the earlier that was submitted before me saying how many people are employed at the Copthorne. It's unrealistic to say that you're going to spend 78k extra on staff when you've got a new town hall. Effectively, you're saying it's going to be mothballed from day one. I also got figures for the insurance cost for the new town hall, which was given as 19,000. I mean, there are some houses which must be paying that in Masterton. It's about 10% of what it probably should be. It should be about 190,000. That's why I think it'd be close to 4 million a year to run the town hall. if you look at I've got some handouts here which I'll leave behind. Masterton have an income from ticket sales and rental of about $250,000 a year. We're talking $4 million a year to run a town hall. So even if we had all of their business, it's a tiny fraction of what it costs to run a town hall. And we're not going to get all of their business. In fact, their income, their staff costs, far exceeds the income they get from ticket sales and rental of rooms, which I guess would be the same for us. Right, that's me on the town hall. There's a lot of other financial information in the FTP. I've drafted a one-pager, which is here, which shows where all the costs increases occur in the core cost areas, like roading, urban water supply, etc., etc. I'm going to give that as a handout. That would be the sort of document you could use to do a line-by-line review of where the costs are increasing. I have had a response from the staff on why some of those increases have occurred. It's not on my handout because then I couldn't fit it on one page, and I wanted to fit it on one page. But there were very brief comments, and sure enough, some of them are definitely valid, things like inflation, stuff like that. But some I think need to be questioned. And all I'm asking today is that please do that sort of review before you sign off the LTP, using something like that as the format.
That's it, Simon?
That's it.
Thank you very much, Simon. Questions? Councillor Goodwin.
Simon, given you're a member of the ratepayers, I'm a wee bit surprised you didn't say anything about the 41.
Is this a question, Councillor Goodwin? You're getting very close to making statements for yourself.
This is you might call it a rhetorical
Would you
question.
please ask with a, start with
Can
a,
you hear me?
Could you please start with a question?
Yeah.
Thank you.
I'll get to it. You haven't mentioned any comments on the 41% rates increase over the next 5 years on average. I'm just wondering if you are concerned about that rate rise.
Well, I did in a way, because I referred to the rates requirements rising from 42 million a year to 62 million a year. That has direct influence on rates. So that's a 50% increase. Obviously, if you take into account inflation, it's going to be 45% on average.
Okay.
Thank you. Any further questions? Councillor Nelson?
Thanks, Simon. It sounds like, from what I've heard, you've done a really detailed analysis of all the cost inputs. So you were saying that the documentation that's been shared with the public is presenting an overly optimistic view on the cost of the facility by the town hall.
Well, I'm glad you said it. I didn't dare.
But that sounds like that's my
That's the very
question.
point. We're making statements
Yes.
here, Councillor.
Yes, I do. I think the costs will be far higher than we've seen quoted in the consultation document.
I'm responding to Simon's information,
You have
and
to
I'm
ask
asking a
the
question
question.
about it. Thank you,
I
Simon.
thought I did answer his question.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, I thought you did too. Okay, any further questions? No further questions. Thank you so much, Simon. And we'll be deliberating early next month and then making decisions at the end of the month. Thank you very much. If you just leave that with Harry or Simon, that would be great. So we've got Lisa, have we?
Lisa.
Oh, Lisa,
She's ready to go.
do you want to come forward now?
Sure. What number was that?
Page 47, volume 1.
Oh, sorry.
Councillors, if I could just remind you though, and I know it's tough, but if you could just keep your statements out of your questions. Thank you. Lisa.
Thanks. So 7 minutes for speaking, 3 minutes for questions, is that right?
Thanks. Oh, sorry, I didn't tell you. I thought you would know. 7 minutes and 3 minutes for questions, yeah?
Great. Kia ora koutou, thanks for having me
If
here
you might be able
today.
to use the microphone, it might make it a bit easier. Lisa, thank you.
Hello, this work? Okay. Kia ora koutou, ko Lisa McLaren tōku ingoa, no Gladstone aho. So for my presentation today, I'll give a quick introduction to my experience and what brings me to the space, and then focus on a couple of key points which might not shock you as to what I'm thinking around the LTP process, especially in terms of climate change. I was born and bred in Te Whiti Gladstone, for those who don't know me, and from intergenerational sheep and beef farms on both sides of the family. And I've now been living back in Gladstone for the last 6 years. It's gone really fast. My expertise is in disaster risk reduction, emergency response, climate change policy, and community engagement. And I've been actively working in the climate change space for the last 15 years. Previously as convener for the Zero Carbon Act law that went through Parliament, but also, as you all know, as a senior policy advisor here at MDC, working in the climate change and environment space until February this year. I just finished my PhD in climate change, disaster management and community science, and now co-director of a climate charity. But the views I have today are my own and not of any organisation I represent. So it will not shock you that I'd like to focus on point 5 of the LTP changes in service section, the point around climate change initiatives. So I support increasing the funding for facilitation by 92k from the years 26-27, as well as increasing community-led climate initiatives fund from 50k to 100k. And I'd sort of was a bit confused why this was even in the consultation document. I didn't realise that council roles were put out for community vote. I hadn't seen that for some in my time at council, so that was an interesting point to see. So I believe across council, as well as in the community, much more thought's needed around the issues of climate change, but we need to bring communities together more to have these conversations. Staff across council do amazing jobs with the capacity they have to face numerous challenges in our community. Cost of living crisis, housing, all those sorts of things are putting pressure on our community, and just want to acknowledge that climate change is another one added to that list, and it is one we need to take seriously and balance against some of those other priorities. So I get that. But I do believe that the Climate Change Activator role, that additional capacity within council, is crucially needed to bring communities along and to engage them in this space. So we know that every tonne of emissions counts. We know that every degree of warming counts. We know that there are severe and devastating impacts happening already from the climate crisis. Cyclone Gabrielle and the impacts out at Te Nui are an example of that. The planet is changing at a startlingly fast rate. These changes shouldn't be happening yet. The early models we had said we had more time. We don't. So I'm deeply passionate about the need to have honest conversations, especially in our rural communities, about how climate action is actually going to benefit them. Climate change should not be seen as an attack on our rural communities. Our farms are some of the most at-risk parts of society from climate change impacts, like spread of new diseases, more severe floods and droughts. This year, we've just had barely any rain for the past summer until yesterday when we had like 30 mils. But even in my sort of Gladstone lifestyle block, we're down to the last few centimetres on our 2 25,000 litre tanks. The water's just not been there. And we've seen those trends continuing year after year, decade after decade. I'm deeply concerned about how much stress and worry the current narrative on climate change is causing our community and especially our farmers. Politicians and media often deliberately stoke the fire of these conversations for their own benefit. And we need to be discussing how these changes are going to affect us on the ground here and what tools we already have on the ground here to deal with them. We need to find some middle ground and focus on creating a shared vision for the future of our district. And that's something I would have liked to see more within this long-term plan. So things like the tree debate. No one wants 1 billion pine trees. No one wants high-quality farmland going to monocrop. There's like nuanced solutions for this stuff. And if we're not embedding that in the work that we're doing as a community, then we're missing out. Same with the dam debate. If that comes up over the next few sort of months or year in the community, it's that equity thing, right? So why would we spend 250 million or whatever on a dam servicing a flat part of the district that already gets groundwater versus like putting that on 250 East Coast rural farms that desperately need more on-site storage. So what equitable ways are we using the money that we have available? Currently the thought of better public transport and electric vehicles in our town, and especially some of our more rural areas, is unthinkable to locals. Our public transport network is not that good. The uptake of EVs needs much more discussion, I would say. These discussions haven't happened in the community in a meaningful way. It's sort of been pitching different, sometimes pseudoscience against each other. Is that my 1 minute left timer? Oh, 4? Cool. So, yeah, I guess speaking of electric vehicles and some of the unintended consequences around climate change, I've heard a lot around this table, in public meetings about the worry for children in the Democratic Republic of Congo involved in cobalt mining and the use of some EV batteries. And yes, there's about 40,000 children involved in that industry, and that's just despicable. Like, let's not call it anything other than it is. So when you're using those sort of examples or you're discussing that around the table, I'd love you to also think about the 1.2 billion children, so 40,000, as well as those 1.2 billion children around the world that are already living in areas of high risk from increasingly severe flooding, increasingly severe drought, and other threats that climate change is exacerbating or making worse around the world. I just ask that you bring them up at the same time as those other conversations and make it clear that as a community we do care about them, and our current hyper-convenient lifestyle is not worth their lives. So there's this sort of rhetoric in New Zealand that we're too small to do anything about it. We're this tiny country at the bottom of the world. But if all countries our size got their act together, did proper climate action, then a third of the total global emissions would be reduced significantly. And our district plays a part in that national goal. So all these little pieces of the puzzle add up. And if we're not doing our bit, there's no way our neighbouring communities will be doing their bit either. We all have to do this together. So my motivations for being here today are many. I'm from a farm, as I said, and I've been forced to watch many farming industry leaders spend the last few decades throwing stones at plans rather than putting their boots on and working out a transition that works for our local communities. The writing has been on the wall for climate change this whole time. We've known the science. We know that it's going to impact. And it's made me so mad that we've let our leaders mess this up so badly and so purposefully. But I'm mostly here because I'm scared that climate change will create communities where I wouldn't want to bring up kids. I come from a middle-class Pākehā family. I currently have 3 university degrees and almost a PhD across the line. I come from a family of farmers and doctors here in the Wairarapa. The legacy of colonialism is strong and it's benefited my family greatly, and my privilege is undeniable. Like, my kids should be okay if I choose to have them, but climate change has made no guarantees with that. So I'm generally scared to have kids because of the successive decades of political inaction. I don't know what those communities are going to look like for them. And what you do in LTPs this year, in 3 years' time, in 6 years' time, that's going to have a dramatic impact on the communities that my kids will grow up in. What does that mean?
You've got another minute, Felicia, just if you talk, and we'll have 2 minutes for questions.
Cool, okay. So I also spend time turning up at events around the country that are full of young people who are really scared about this stuff too. They're actually quite capable of discussing quite complex, nuanced policy points, but most of the time what they're doing is discussing their fear, and that can't be good for their mental health. They're looking to leaders like yourselves to make choices that will really benefit them in the future when they're hopefully in similar leadership positions to you. And I hope that this LTP that you're creating and passing sends those local kids a signal that you've got their backs and you're putting in the right things now, the right policies in place, the right finance in the right place, so that they're not going to have an even bigger mess to clean up when they get to your positions. So I'd really encourage you to start thinking much bigger around climate change, not focus on the next few months or the next year or the next 2 years, not even the next 10 years. I'm asking you to think about in the timescale of a lifetime. So the addition of climate change activators to permanent staff roles, as well as increasing the funding available to community groups to champion their own local solutions here in the Wairarapa, are two really obvious and quite comparatively inexpensive ways to provide a lot of leadership to our community. Let's invest in these local community leaders. They're definitely worth investing in. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lisa. Right, questions for Lisa? Councillor Tudor.
Kia ora, Lisa. Thank you for your submission. Earlier on in your submission, you spoke about not being aware of the public when the council appoint or something you said. I just wanted to know.
Oh, do you mean in terms of roles?
Yes, would you mind explaining that?
Yeah, I guess the funding for this role, or this the climate activator role, is the 92, I think, K that's up for consultation here, and I just hadn't sort of come across where a council's role has been so publicly put out for consultation or vote or debate before. So people have come and gone. There's been restructures in my time here that have meant staff have come and gone, and so I was just interested why this particular role was put up as one of those service level changes versus other roles that come and go at council at other times.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson.
Thank you. Thank you for your presentation, Lisa. I can only imagine you're referring to me around cobalt. So you're not suggesting it's okay to source that resource because there's much worse things happening elsewhere?
Can you repeat the question?
So you're not suggesting, I hope you're not suggesting, that it's okay to use cobalt.
Councillor Nelson, you're giving your opinion again.
Okay. Are you saying that it's okay to source cobalt to run electric car batteries because it's not as bad as what's happening with climate change across the planet?
No. So any child slavery, any child labour with no restrictions on their sort of human rights is unacceptable. I would never say that that's okay. What I'm asking is, it's great that you're thinking about child slavery and human rights at this council table, and if you do that, I would like you to also include those 1.2 billion children that are at risk from climate change hazards, whether that's floods, storms, sea level rise, coastal erosion, all those things that are impacting those 1.2 billion children around the world. I would like you to include that also in that thing. So it's not an either or, it's an and. So those 40,000 people that are mining, which is despicable, and the fact that we're not doing enough to save those 1.2 billion children.
That's nice to hear. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Nelson, we're not allowed to even comment that it's not here, basically. We'll just hear questions.
No, it was specifically pointed at me, I felt.
So that's just the way it works, sorry. Okay, any further questions? Yeah, Councillor Helena.
Yeah, morning, Lisa, and congratulations on, I'm not sure, have you got the PhD over the line? That's a question, right?
It's finished. It's not submitted, it's finished.
It's
Nearly
a
there.
huge, mammoth thing to do a PhD, so my compliments to you. You've outlined some of the risks for the Wairarapa around climate change, and we've talked about water shortages, East Coast farmers and sort of thing. could you outline, based on your knowledge, understanding, what are some of the big risks to climate change facing the Masterton District Council now, the next year, the next 5 years, next 10 years? What are the big challenges we're facing?
Yeah, absolutely, I can do that. So the most obvious risks that we tend to think about are those things like increased levels of floods or increased severe floods, landslides, especially when it affects our rail or roading network. So especially in the East Coast hills, especially some of the more steeper land, we saw that with Cyclone Gabrielle, just how much damage was done to those roads. And so I guess to me the most worrying thing is these impacts aren't going to go away. They're just going to keep piling up. The cost of it is going to keep piling up. And on a small district council, that we can't, our district can't afford that cost. So what are the plans in place now to make sure those hotspots on our roading network are dealt with, preemptively dealt with, make sure that we've got renewable energy out at the coast, so if something really bad happens, that those communities are taken care of with fuel and power and food. So things like community gardens are really good to make sure that people actually have access to local food, both, to keep down the cost of living, but also in terms of climate resilience or disaster resilience. So it's not stuff that we haven't faced before. The problem with climate change is it's stuff that gets worse and worse. Some of the things that we might not face now, but also in the future, are changing temperatures, changing frosts, which will impact our agriculture and horticulture industries. So it might mean that they have to start adapting with different types of grains or crops or whatever it is. But if we're doing that planning and discussions with them now, it's less of a financial burden for them later on, because that process won't have to be a sharp, forced change. It'll be something that people are willing to actually do because they can see a benefit to it, and that they've had that time to think about it and work with community leaders about it.
So the effects are likely to be cumulative, but they could be tomorrow.
Absolutely.
Flooding again tomorrow. What are the risks in Masterton town itself for significant flooding?
So for that, in terms of the actual rates, you'd want to talk to Greater Wellington in terms of their flood modelling. But from their latest modelling, it's clear that there was more severe flooding, like we saw at Esk Valley and other parts of the Hawke's Bay with Cyclone Gabrielle. Those mammoth floods that have not been seen either before or in a very long time. If the frequency of those gets more common, whether it's every decade, every 5 years, if that stuff we're going to have to deal with, if the sort of tail end, the more extreme end of those events becomes common, it's going to cost a lot of money, and it's going to cost a lot in terms of community cohesion. Like, if people are stressed, there's less likely we're going to have a really nice, cohesive community that wants to go out and enjoy this place together. It's just going to put more financial and social and cultural burden on people.
So if you were the decision maker for Masterton District Council and we had discretionary spending, perhaps 42 million, where would you spend it?
Oh, that's great. So if I had your power with discretionary $42 million spending, I would first get a really good plan in place for this. I would not rush out and do a bunch of little projects. I would think over the next 50 years, where are the points that are going to break first? What are the impacts that are going to affect different areas of this town? How can we stage them in a budget? You could earn interest on that 42 million and still do several projects, every year. So I would just think really strategically about the best use of that, and I would look to co-benefits. Things like the community gardens have so many community building benefits, as well as, locally sourced kai and resilience. Things like cycleways, people can get out of cars. There's lots of health benefits to cycling. There's lots of lowering fuel costs and energy poverty associated with that. But people just don't really think about cycling as a thing nowadays as much. Some people do, it's their hobby. But generally, it's seen as a bit too dangerous, and it doesn't have to be that way. a few good cycleways around town. It's quite a small area. It could be really connected really easily, but have all those co-benefits for people at the same time.
So if we had discretionary 42 million, your preference would be climate change initiatives?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Lisa.
Excuse me, can we just have that explained? Why was that not a question?
Was it not in his original submission?
Climate change is in the
Climate
original
change
submission.
was, but at no
Can't
stage,
talk about
at no
climate
stage during the submission, was she, this in the public record here, did she give an opinion as to what we should do with the 40 million?
Not the 40 million, but in terms of preferences around
Okay,
where we
let's
should
let's
spend
carry
our
on.
money.
Thank you so much, Lisa.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it. Okay, Anne Lincoln. Hi, Anne.
Hi.
Anne, you've got 7 minutes to speak to us. We have 3 minutes for questions. And you're being live streamed. And if you use the microphone, that'll be great.
Okay.
Okay, over to you.
Firstly, I'd like to really thank Lisa.
Just move the microphone up a little bit, Anne.
Okay. I'd like to thank Lisa for her presentation and fully support what she talked about. So thank you for giving me the opportunity to submit to you on the long-term plan. The consultation process has been outstanding, and I think is reflected by the number of submissions that you've received. I really appreciate the work the Council has done and is still doing on maintaining infrastructure, pipes, bridges, roads, etc. I was unable to find the submissions online, in particular my submissions, so I hope I've got this right. My background, I live in a community with 8 other families on Te Whiti Road. I worked as a GP in the Wairarapa for 40 years, mainly in Masterton and Whaiora, but also as GP liaison for Wairarapa DHB and later Tuora Compass Health. I've served on various health committees, including the PHO, Wairarapa Clinical Governance Board and Tuora Quality Board, until retiring in 2022. I have 4 children. 2 reside in the Wairarapa, 1 in Masterton and the other in Martinborough, both with families of their own. I have no experience in local government. So looking at big decision number 1, in 2020, the Masterton District Council had asked Haworth Hotel Tourism and Leisure for a demand analysis on the viability of a multi-purpose event centre. Albeit the site for an event centre had not been decided, but what struck me was this paragraph, and I'd like to actually quote this directly. The new venue would bring some incremental events to the Wairarapa. However, given the constraints on Masterton's ability to perform well as a conference destination, the number of incremental events would likely be very limited. The venue may therefore be tempted to attract event bookings away from other existing venues in the region. The new venue, Solway Park and Carlton Event Centre, are likely to compete directly for the available business because of the relatively small number of events in the region, constraints on the potential to grow the number of events significantly, and the need to at least cover operating expenses. This could both limit the potential demand for events at a new centre and result in a race to the bottom as the 3 venues attempt to win business while generating lower margins. So that was in 2020. So what's changed in the last 4 years? Well, we have a cost of living crisis. Families already struggle to pay their mortgages, rates or rent before the proposed increases. There is a recession. People have less disposable income for attending music events, theatre, banquets, dances, or whatever else is envisaged in the new centre. The impact of climate change is clearly documented in the Climate Assumptions document. This will inevitably lead to more expense for local governments as catastrophic weather events become more frequent. With this knowledge, it is hard to justify a major building project which will inevitably compete with existing venues in the Wairarapa. Even not taking into account the carbon emissions from such a building project, the time is not right and sends completely the wrong message. There is no option given for a dedicated civil defence building separate from the town hall build. Would the council consider an option 4? Demolish the town hall and municipal buildings, extend Waiata House so all council functions are in one place, and link this to a purpose-built civil defence facility. This building should be an absolute priority for the council. And I think Lisa clearly demonstrated why that is. The Wairarapa Combined District Plan is an example of how the 3 councils can and must work together. Building a competing venue that offers essentially the same facilities as Carlton Event Centre, albeit bigger, runs the risk of driving a wedge between councils at a time when we can least afford to do so. Rather than competing, all 3 councils need to put aside parochial desires and work collectively to improve the spiritual, cultural, physical and social well-being of all the Wairarapa, drawing on each other's strengths and having a collective vision. If we get through this current crisis, there is an opportunity in the future for an amazing project. Internationally, there are wonderful examples of covered spaces, sound shells with modern design made from sustainable products, without the need for a facade from a bygone era. These spaces can cater for large crowds without the expense of an enclosed building. With the library and archive, my preferred option is to upgrade and extend the library now and include the archive. If the decision is made not to build a multi-purpose event centre, then the library extension is affordable and can provide a space for community programmes and local events. The opportunity for innovative design, flexible spaces in the town itself is very appealing and will be good for local business. The local facility provides an opportunity for a virtual booth for customer service, informing on council activities, feedback, etc., which will help link community to the council. So big decision 2, whilst it would be fantastic to upgrade the centre, now is not the time. Decision 3, community groups and organisations are run mainly by unpaid volunteers. To expect these organisations to apply every 12 months for contestable funding is unrealistic and unreasonable. There has to be some certainty of funding in order to plan and budget. Whilst accountability is necessary, rather than making the funding more equitable, the Council's preferred option runs the risk of doing the opposite. Big decision 4. The savings under these proposals are not huge, but the impacts of reducing funding may be. Encouraging walking and cycling is part of the climate strategy, so how does cutting the funding fit with this? Change 4, welcoming communities. What tremendous events were put on to welcome and celebrate our increasingly diverse community. These events help decrease fears and prejudice against people who are culturally different. Is funding from the external provider guaranteed? Change 5. It's important the MDC continues to facilitate community-led climate change initiatives. Having a direct link to council and the resulting corridor conversations to inform about community initiatives is worth more than money. The QE Park, Lake of Remembrance and Henley Lake. If one has to go, then Henley Lake is ideal for a wetland area and would still retain its beauty. QE Park is used recreationally for so many people, and I think it would be a shame to lose that. On other issues, the 20-minute town. State Highway 2 has a speed restriction of 80 kilometres an hour. I live on Te Whiti Road, which has a 100-kilometre speed limit. It is a 20-minute cycle ride to Masterton, but most of the time it's unsafe to cycle due to the speed of cars and trucks. The council has approved subdivisions along Te Whiti Road up to Te Whiti Settlement Road. There have been multiple crashes on Moordales Bridge, including a fatality this Christmas, but there is only a plan to decrease the speed limit 100 metre either side of the bridge. I would ask the Council, when the Council approves subdivision and rural roads, to look at the increased traffic implications and review the speed limit and alter accordingly so that cycling and walking is made safer and makes 20 minutes towns more achievable and is better for the environment.
Yeah, thank you very much. Any questions, Frank?
Just a point of clarity around Waiata House, the proposal, it does include the civil defence accommodation.
But my understanding is it's linked directly to the town hall build. There isn't an option for doing one and not the other.
They are three separate projects, but thank you.
Okay. Any further questions? No further questions. Thank you very much, Anne. We start our deliberations early next month and finalise them at the end of the month. So we'll see what happens. Thank you so much, Anne. Okay, morning tea. So we're adjourning till 10 past 11.
G'day, how are you? Good to see you. Causing trouble as usual?
Okay, everybody, we reconvene and we have Bullshit, Gavin Tankersley. Gavin, if you'd like to come up.
Yep, and Murray Thomas.
And Gavin and Murray.
Cheers.
Gavin and Murray, you know the rules here, but you've been here before as well. 7 minutes speaking, 3 minutes questions.
Yep.
Well, I don't need to tell you anymore anyway. There you go.
Well, as said, from our point of view, it's a submission on our woolshed, the National Shearing Museum, and it's concerning the funding for community groups. And in the plan, you have the funding all being contestable for the community groups, as opposed to what you've had in the past, whereas a number have not needed to contest. They've had the fortunate situation of, I believe, a 3-year plan. Since 2005, we've had to front up every year, so we have no problem with it being contestable as you propose. That's fine by us. I think number one from our point of view is the fact that it does put us on the spot to actually justify the funds we do get from council, and the fact that we are performing as you would expect for your investment in our complex. So we have no problem with the contestability of it. Where we have a problem is the fact that it seems to be that you have taken to penny pinching for the community groups, and I think that is unfair. My understanding is that you're reducing the cost to council by $1 per annum per rateable section or house, and that dollar, I sort of feel, is a very small, minuscule amount when we look at other expenditure that the council is taking on, and increasing, for argument's sake, support for the essential works of the town is going to cost every ratepayer another $78, or every average ratepayer in the town. So what is the difference if you actually increase it to $79, or even go way up and increase it to an $80 extra? For argument's sake, I'm probably going to go and have a cup of coffee after I leave here. That's going to cost me $5 or $6 on one day, let alone saving $1 per annum. So I feel that the overall fund that you propose for us and all the other community groups, which is a considerable number, and involves a considerable number of people in the town who give their time, and I would say 99% of the time they give it voluntarily, and in fact they probably dip into their back pocket to support these groups. And effectively what you're doing is taking from them and sort of saving $1 per annum on rates per average household. And I think this is penny pinching where it doesn't need to be. And that's primarily where we come from. We're happy to contest because we are a group that's taking the council's money, and we are answerable to the people of Masterton. But I think that looking at the actual money that we're able to apply to is not nearly enough, and I feel that a few dollars more there could actually create a little bit easier for those people who give their time freely to all these community services. So that's that's primarily where we come from.
Thank you very much.
The fact that I think we deserve a little bit better hearing.
Thank you. Murray, do you want to say that?
No, fine.
Right, any questions for Gavin and Murray? Seems like you got the message across, folks. Thank you very much for coming in. We deliberate at the start of next month, and we have our final deliberations at the end of the month.
Okay.
All right, thank you very much.
Just one other point that we would, as far as obviously the She History Trust, we're a museum, so we're interested in old buildings, and we do support the council in their proposal for the retaining the facade of the town hall. So that comes from our board. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Thanks, folks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Cliff. Cliff Bouton. Hi, Cliff.
Good morning, all.
No, you've been here before, so I don't
Only
need
once
to.
ago, only once.
Yeah. 7 minutes, 3 minutes questions.
Thank you. I'll have a seat. Firstly, I'd like to commend the Council for the improved long-term planning and community consultation which they're currently achieving. In his monthly wrap of April 2024, His Worship the Mayor outlines the challenges of implementing a long-term plan and calls for the community to have their say. So here I am, a long-term resident and ratepayer, asking some questions. Who among you are currently planning extensions or refurbishments to your homes? How many of you are rushing to borrow money to invest in new property or to have nice-to-have electric cars? We presently hear, read and see much evidence of people struggling financially. Our country is struggling financially. Many councils are overburdened with debt and are in crisis management. Underinvestment in essential services and infrastructure is the cause. Do we want to become one of these districts? Yes, we do need a plan for the future, and capital investment and expenditure is part of that process. However, a prudent council needs to ensure that we achieve the balance between investment and essential services and nice-to-haves. I like the council's preferred option for the town, but I do not support it at this time. We've managed with the town hall for more than 8 years. The Carlton Event Centre and the Trust House Theatre are two facilities which offer meeting and performance functions within our region. It seems to me that the main motivation for this nice-to-have town hall is aesthetic. We cannot afford aesthetic. Listening to the previous presentation, to save $1. Do we really need a town hall? If my memory serves me correctly, prior to closure, the town hall was used infrequently and seldom attracted live shows or theatre. Times have changed, and in order to attract performance shows, venues need to have well-developed infrastructure and large populations, which are concentrated only in our largest cities. Will we be building white elephants at a huge cost to ratepayers? My concern regarding the council's preferred option for the library developments are similar. Without question, we need a functional library which is fit for purpose. People who use the library are grateful and pleased with the facilities that we have on offer. Maintaining these facilities must be a priority. Would remedial work on the basement provide additional space? I'm not too sure. At this time, I personally cannot see the justification for spending or building new facilities with a $10 million price tag. With a growing population, increased rates revenue, higher QVs, increased user pays, it could be expected, I would have expected, that rating revenues would actually cover increasing expenditure in our town today. Why are they not? Instead, we are faced with unsustainable increases in rates at levels well above inflation. We were proud last year to keep them to just about inflation, or just below, I can't remember. Where can we actually trim expenditure? Having my say, ladies and gentlemen, is about actually asking some questions so that you, our elected council, can make the decisions which consider my views and those that have elected you, that you've been elected to represent. Good luck making the right, prudent choices for the future of our town. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Cliff. Question? Councillor Tuta. Councillor Maribor.
Thank you for your submission. You chose alternative 2 for the town hall, and yet for question 8, you said keep the facade. I don't quite see how you can do that. If you demolish what does it say, the town hall and the municipal building, how can you keep the facade?
As per the plan, you keep the facade on both sides of Chapel Street and down Cole. So you're still keeping the facade, but you're building the town hall behind it, aren't you? Isn't that the plan?
There are a couple of options. So that is one of the plans, to retain the facade based on the cost when it comes to it. So,
and I can understand that the council's deliberations about renovating and reinstating the council offices are fraught with a lot of uncertainty about additional cost, which is why I guess you've gone for your preferred option, is that it's more clear, it retains the facade which many people wanted to do, an aesthetic thing, and hence my choice of the word aesthetic, because that's all that we're wanting to do. I like it too. I'd like to be driving here with a nice new electric car so that I can be nice and green for the environment and all the rest of it. But I make a choice not to do so. I've just replaced windows in a rental. I would love to have kept the original windows, but it didn't work because retrofitting the windows would not have provided the insulation that proper double glazed windows would do. I've had to lose that facade. I didn't want to, but the right decision was to do so. I make no mistake, I've always supported the retention of that site and the facade. But I guess things change. And currently the expenditure of $50+ million on 2 areas of development in this town at this time doesn't rest easily with me. I think, I know that councils work differently to households. We're planning to invest in the refurbishment of our home or a car or whatever. We set aside some money. We plan, we build savings for 5 or 10 years, and then we go and borrow some. We don't rely on other people to pay every cent that we're deciding about. And the economy is tight. Every day I'm hearing people talk about more people being laid off. And every bit of rate increase that we have has to be paid by the person that's renting, not necessarily the property owner, of which I'm one. And I'll rent out, but I've now, over the last number of years, turned and said, well, I'm faced with increased rates increases every year. I'm faced with massive insurance increases every year. I must at least pass that part on to my tenants. So they pay. And I don't think it's fair.
Councillor Titty, you're on.
Thank you. I still don't understand having demolished.
Okay, thank you. Cliff, I take it you would agree that when it comes to expenditure and whatever, when you have a Cyclone Gabrielle, it tends to turn everything into custard.
Yes. And which is why I keep savings.
Sounds like a statement, Gary.
Thank you,
Thank you,
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Council. As I say, parting words.
Good to see you again, Cliff. Wairarapa Community Centre, John, Bond's not here. Okay, is Jeanette Bunny?
Oh,
Hi, Jeanette.
hi.
Jeanette, you've seen the way it works. You have 7 minutes to speak. We have 3 minutes to ask questions. You're being live streamed.
Yep, right.
And if you want to use a microphone, it's there.
No, I'll be right.
Are you all right? Thank you, Jeanette.
I would like to say that I am exceedingly nervous.
Oh, don't be nervous.
And that I am in my mid-80s. So bear with. Yes, my name is Jeanette Bunny, and I have lived in the Wairarapa for 57 years, mainly in the Bideford district and now in the Wairarapa area. My husband's family go back a long way, and in fact Henry Bunny arrived in the Wairarapa in 1854. He was a man with some vision. He was a politician, and he represented the Wairarapa in Parliament for 16 consecutive years. He was a man with vision. With pickaxes, a shovel, a wooden wheelbarrow and a bullock team, the Rimataka Road was forged, and it was opened in 1856. They were men with vision. Now, I don't want to have to travel to Palmerston North over the track, or go out over the Rimatakas at night to go and see a travelling show, the ballet, the National Orchestra, or an opera. I would like them to come here to us, but we don't have the facilities to accommodate those sort of venues. The Wairarapa is an amazing town, and in here we have amazing talent. We've got musicians, we've got bands, jazz bands. At Wairarapa College last year, they had an amazing band called Dragonfly. We have the Wairarapa Singers. We have also a community orchestra, but they have nowhere really to come and play for us. We've got a lot of primary schools here, and admittedly they do all have small halls, but they can't facilitate things like a concert, a production, and even the prize giving at the end of the year, because there isn't anywhere big enough for all the whānau to come and see their kids. I know that I am very much aware of how much this is going to cost the ratepayers, and especially those on fixed and low incomes. However, take a drive around Masterton. Go and have a look at the barracks, the plains, Sir Brian Lahore Drive, the driving range, Opaki Straits, the Cashmere Oaks, and goodness, look how many homes that have sprung up in that Solway area, hundreds of them. They are all new builds, and they will all be paying rates. And I say, bring on more of them. We need a population. So I say to you, Masterton District Council, stop procrastinating, stop wringing your hands. Give us a good town hall / event centre that we can all be proud of, that our children's children's children can be proud of for the next 60 to 100 years. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Jeanette. Any questions for Jeanette? Jeanette, thank you so much.
Thank you. Good.
You did a great job. Thank you. The Wairarapa Community Centre. Because she said she was nervous.
Oh, we're very early. For half an hour.
The voice was strong. It's a great presentation.
Yeah.
Yeah, well done.
You should bring these together. Are we still on?
plan, by the way, for tonight, folks, is that we do reconvene and come back at 6 after audit and risk, but if audit and risk goes for pretty close to 6 o'clock, we all get some pizzas in and stay here. So I'll just see how audit and risk goes.
Yeah, taste Put your order here.
Message.
Yep.
If the next people are no show, then we may have to adjourn until 12 o'clock.
Well, these ones here would have already been in general, right? You gotta make them that come back. As long as we would.
We're not going to set live streams, it's 30 minutes.
Announcement. I would like to ask questions that have come out of presentations today, just for some clarification of the council. No. You know, like the guy talks about poor economy, for example.
Training?
So can you not read this?
Just a reminder
Microphones are still on, folks. We will turn the live stream off, I think, till the next Okay, we reconvene the hearings and welcome to Rosie Rogers and Jenna Snellgrove. If you could come up, you two, talking to us about the tourism industry. You get 7 minutes to speak. We have 3 minutes for questions. You're being live streamed, so go for it.
Right.
And there's a microphone there if you need to think you.
It's off, isn't it? Yeah. Tēnā koutou katoa, Your Worship, the Mayor, councillors and fellow ratepayers and Destination Wairarapa supporters. My name is Rosie Rogers. I was born here in Masterton and raised out at Riversdale Beach. And while I have moved down the valley slightly to Gladstone, all of my family still live in the Masterton district and I care very deeply about this community. I'm the owner of the White Swan Hotel in Greytown and the Tui Brewery Experience in Mangatanuka.
Great, and I'm Jenna Snellgrove and I'm GM of our transit group, overseeing our transport and tourism companies throughout New Zealand. And I'm really proud to call Wairarapa home, not only for me and my family, my kids, my partner, but also for our family business that will celebrate 100 years next year. Proud to call Masterton home base. And it was only 10 years ago that we were securing more and more business outside the Wairarapa region. And we were often asked by clients, where is your head office? To which we'd proudly respond, the Wairarapa. To which they would say, and where is that? Nowadays, we meet with comments like, what a fantastic region, can't wait to visit, I've read a lot about it. So, to me, it's just a small story that illustrates how far our region has come, how it is recognised now as a destination to visit, and that doesn't happen overnight. That takes years and years of marketing expertise, brand management, brand planning, engagement, partnerships, and strategy. And that happens with a regional tourism organisation like Destination Wairarapa. So today we will reference the organisation as DW. We're here on behalf of a group of tourism businesses to thank you for your support of DW and to encourage you to continue your investment at the current levels. We just wanted to cover off 3 key points today. The first one is, what is the role of DW? What do they do? The second one is, what is the return on Masterton District Council's investment and what is the value to ratepayers? And thirdly, why we believe it is essential that your funding continues and why it needs to be on a 3-year funding cycle.
So Gina and I have both been recently at Trends in Wellington, which is a New Zealand tourism conference. It's an opportunity to sell our products to buyers from all over the world. And it is definitely the biggest event on the New Zealand tourism calendar. DW were there too, promoting our region to buyers from all over the world. And after Trends, DW then brought 20 buyers, really keen buyers from Trends, over into the Wairarapa. They got an opportunity to see firsthand what is on offer here, see our hotels and visitor attractions. And then these travel agents carried on back home to tell their organisations all about what is available here. These international travel agents will continue over the coming years to send tourists spending hundreds of thousands of dollars into our region. This is one example of the work that DW does that goes largely unseen, and your council investment made that possible.
So Rosie and I have worked with DW for over 10 years, and their core role is destination marketing. So it's not just about helping people decide where they go when they get here, it's about getting them to the Wairarapa. So it's an extremely competitive market against all other regions throughout New Zealand and other countries. And like marketing, if you don't invest in marketing, you're not going to gain market share. So in the last financial year, visitor spend increased in Masterton to 90.2 million. This is considerably more than Carterton and South Wairarapa. So for comparison, Carterton was 10.7 million and South Wairarapa was 53.8 million. Some of that 90.2 million is due to specific events like the Wairarapa Balloon Festival, the Golden Shears, but it's also
indirect from tourists exploring the wider region, spending their money across the Masterton district. And while these people visit the obvious places such as the cinemas, Aratoy, Copthorne, Castle Point Beach, the money goes to our supermarkets, our dairies, the gas stations, pharmacies and restaurants.
So last week at Tui Brewery, Tui and Transit sponsored the Business Wairarapa annual combined chamber event, and Mayor Tracy Collis spoke at that event in favour of tourism, and she said to us that $1 spent in the community goes around 8 times. So if you use that example for the $90.2 million that was spent by visitors in the Masterton district last year, that equates to $721.6 million. I like to think of this as foreign currency. This is new money coming into our economy. And so it benefits everyone here as new money entering, not just the tourism businesses who pay the membership fees as that money begins to circulate. So let me use my business as an example. When a tourist comes over from Wellington to spend a night at my hotel, I use that money to pay my staff's wages, some of whom live in Masterton. I also use that money to order my produce from the Wilsons, my wine from Matahiwi. I get my upgraded appliances at Newbolts, and I get my business services from our good friends at Lawson Avery and Garwood Burridge. The list goes on and on. While we do have 3 councils, we do not have 3 independent economies. So when you ask the question, why should taxpayers pay for Destination Wairarapa? The answer is obvious, because all taxpayers benefit from the money from tourism.
There's no secret that there's been significant private investment into South Wairarapa's tourism offerings. So this is leading to an increase in spend, but Masterton is nearly $40 million higher in spend in the last financial year compared with South Wairarapa. So out at the coast, we have the new Homewood storeroom, we have the Riversdale Golf Club, which is expanding due to an increased demand from holidaymakers. Businesses like Cycling Tom is about to launch their cycle tours with their 70 brand new e-bikes, and there is so much more opportunity for Masterton around the dark skies, family getaways, agri-tourism and cycling. Destination Wairarapa would play a vital role in helping the region realise the economic benefits of this through promoting it to the national and international markets. So the Town Hall would also be a positive investment in tourism for Masterton Council.
So DW is the glue that holds the region's tourism together. It's no coincidence that just about every time you pick up a lifestyle magazine or jump on an Air New Zealand flight, you will see a glowing article about the Wairarapa, chances are with a beautiful photo of Castle Point. The 3-year funding model provides the certainty and continuity which is essential to being able to plan effectively. DW would not train and retain qualified staff like the team we have sitting in DW today. During this period of slow economic growth and increased headwinds, enabling buoyant tourism activity is a logical and prudent step for councils to take. So once again, thank you for your support that you have given to our industry through contributing to Destination Wairarapa. Tourism is New Zealand's 2nd largest industry, and regional tourism is dependent on partnerships with local government. We are asking you to continue your support at current levels, which is so vital for this district and the region as a whole. Thank you.
Thank you, Rosie. Yeah, right, questions?
I'll ask.
Councillor Helena.
Thank you, ladies, for your passionate promotion of tourism in the Wairarapa. I guess for me, you did right. 90.2 million is, I'm getting to a question, a lot of money, and we've got a multiplier effect of 8, multiplies that. That happens with every dollar that comes into the community, and that multiplier effect's really important for economic growth and development in our community. Totally agree. I guess the question for me, for you, is what are the parameters or what are the measures we use to identify how much of that comes into the community, that 90.2 million, can be attributed to DW? What are the measures? What's the confirmation anybody can give that that's due to the work of DW as opposed to just happening naturally? Well, through not naturally, but through the work of those individual tourism spaces, and I'm sure you both do your own work in that space as businesses and tourism.
Yeah, I think this is a really important question, and it is a challenging one. Any marketing investment is a really hard piece to measure. That's not for us, is it? It is a really challenging thing to measure, and at the end of the day, Destination Wairarapa have the mandate to do this work, and no one else is doing it. So independently, businesses are, chipping away, but Destination Wairarapa are the ones owning the Wairarapa brand. And so while it's really hard to say, like clear cut, you can attribute this to the investment that's being made, they are the ones making the big investment. And it's with the money from Masterton Council that's enabling that. So it isn't an easy measure to really grasp hold on, and it's something that is a challenge nationally for all marketing, but tourism especially. But it's my belief from the work the results I see from the work that they do, that it is a significant chunk of that 90 million.
So just to reinforce that, there's no, direct data for that 90.2 million that can contribute to Destination Wairarapa's role. But I would say to you, think of your last holiday, what made you pick that destination? A lot of work has gone into that. You don't see it, you might have touched 10 different channels before you selected that destination. You've read about it, you've seen it on Facebook, you've heard from friends and family, and that's the role that Destination Wairarapa plays. So it's really hard to put a tangible figure on that. The only other comment that I would point on that is if you're seeing their activity, then they're not doing the job right, because their job is out of this community and offshore, and that's where they're targeting and bringing visitors to the Wairarapa.
And it's perhaps one of our wonderings, we're not seeing those activities, and we need to see them.
And you shouldn't, because you're not their market. Their market is bringing people into this region, not targeting people in the Wairarapa. So that's a really, I couldn't be more clear on DW's role.
Any further questions? Joe?
Sure, Lane. Thank you very much for your presentation. It's wonderful. Do you have any statistics around Māori tourism for the Wairarapa area?
I don't specifically, so as a business operator, no, I don't have that specifically.
Yeah, likewise. We don't specifically dive into segments or demographics ourselves, but I think if that's something that would be valuable for council, I'm sure that's something Destination Wairarapa would do their best to provide.
Any further questions? No further questions. Thank you very much, Rosie and Jenna. We start our deliberations early next month, finish them at the end of the month, so you'll have some information then.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I think, folks, we will adjourn to 6 o'clock tonight for the hearings.
So we'll be at 1,
We have an audit and risk meeting at 1 o'clock.
This meeting.
This meeting adjourns till 6.
Thanks, someone in running the table.
Very good, thank you.